It's really interesting. What would you do if you saw someone on a forum with the username Lover of Little Girls? You have to admit, that sounds really disgusting, but this is a real person who abused at least 4 girls, including the one we're going to talk about today. And to everyone around him, he would say that he lived somewhere high up in the mountains and that you could do whatever you wanted with kids there. It's not just disgusting, it's revolting. Stanton is a small community in Orange County, located about 26 miles southeast of downtown Los Angeles. One of Stanton's residents was a little girl named Samantha Runnion. Samantha's mom, Erin, worked as an analyst at British Petroleum in Long Beach, California. She decided to move to the Smoke Tree apartment complex in Stanton because it was a safe and family-friendly place. Place like that. The neighbors were very friendly. It was the kind of place where people trusted each other, and houses and garages were never locked. Samantha, like the other kids, was often one of those playing outside. When her mom came home from work, she would hide and then jump out to surprise her. Her mom always reminded her not to leave the yard. Erin said that Samantha was kind, loving, just the way a child should be. She was happy. Samantha became a victim of circumstance. No one was hunting her, no one was following her. She just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But it's really important to say that the criminal we're talking about today is a really nasty and slippery guy. And at that time, no one knew that before Samantha, he had abused at least 3 other girls. Watch until the end to find out all the most interesting details of this case. July 15th, 2002, 6:30 p.m. 5-year-old Samantha and her friend, 6-year-old Sarah, were playing outside. Samantha's grandmother was watching her while her mom and her mom's boyfriend were at work. The girls were sitting and happily playing a board game. While they were playing, a green car drove by. It circled the block and came back. A man got out of the car and asked the girls if they had seen a puppy. He said he was looking for his missing chihuahua. Samantha asked what size the puppy was, and at that moment, the man suddenly grabbed her and dragged her into the car. Samantha kicked and screamed, desperately trying to break free. As she was being pulled into the car, she shouted to her best friend, "Go get Grandma!" The door slammed shut and the driver sped off. Samantha Runnion was born on July 26, 1996, to her father Derek and mother Erin. Later, Erin and Derek separated. Derek moved to Sunderland, Massachusetts, but he still remained very close to Samantha. "I loved her so much," he said, talking about the letters and packages he sent her, as well as all the time she came to visit him. Samantha loved sunflowers, superheroes, princess costumes, and the Disney cartoon Hercules. Hercules was her favorite hero, and she kept his poster above her bed. She was a smart, gifted student who had just finished first grade, and now a massive search operation was underway to try to find her. From the moment Samantha was abducted, the investigation was carried out with desperate urgency, not only because she was abducted in broad daylight, with her grandmother right in the apartment and her friends standing nearby, but also because every passing second mattered. Her description was distributed. She was wearing a gray blouse, red plaid shorts, and pink sandals with a green frog print. Samantha was kidnapped in broad daylight, and it was a real shock for the local community. The thing is, the place where Samantha lived was completely peaceful and wasn't known for crime at all. People there knew each other, and overall, life was absolutely calm. Of course, such a kidnapping caused a whole storm of emotions among the local residents. Search teams and volunteers continued the large-scale search operation that had already been launched. A sudden wave of terror swept over the parents. This was a place they had always considered safe. It was a small and cozy town, but now everything seemed much darker and heavier. Even though she was only 6 years old and had just witnessed something unimaginably horrific, Samantha's friends showed remarkable courage and clarity of mind. Despite the shock, she was able to give investigators detailed descriptions, both of the man who kidnapped Samantha and the pale green car he was driving. She described him as a man with slick back black hair and a black mustache. Her account helped artists create a composite sketch, which was quickly made public, and within a few hours, law enforcement officers were stopping hundreds of cars that even remotely resembled the one she had seen. Her ability to recall what she saw played an extremely important role in moving the investigation forward. This became one of the earliest and most important leads in the search for Samantha's kidnapper. Reports were coming in from all over the area, and soon the story attracted nationwide attention. The fact that she was kidnapped in broad daylight shook the community to its core, making many parents question just how safe their streets really were. In fact, people didn't lose hope and prayed with all their hearts, but just 24 hours after the abduction, that hope was shattered. A call came in to 911 from a hang glider pilot who had spotted something in a wooded area, a remote spot near Lake Elsinore, not far from the intersection of Kill Trail and Truck Trail on Ortega Highway, about 50 miles from Samantha's home. The caller's voice was clearly shaken. At times, he was so upset that he could barely speak coherently. "Oh God, we found a body. Please hurry. I'm so scared. It's a little child. It's a baby," the caller said. "I think this might be the girl they were talking about on the news. I'm so sorry," he said, adding that he himself had a 3-year-old child. "Please hurry, I'm scared and I want to leave," he said. As his panic started to rise, the operator pleaded with him to stay calm, to remain as calm as possible. Investigators were already on their way and would arrive as soon as possible. And despite desperate efforts to find her, their worst fears had now come true. It was a body, Samantha Runnion. The details that will come to light later in this case will clearly indicate that the perpetrator has serious mental health issues. Cruelty is abnormal in general, but when it's directed at children, it's absolutely horrifying. I'll reveal the identity of the perpetrator a bit later, but you should know that before this, he had abused 3 other girls, and he wasn't imprisoned at the time because there was no physical evidence. She had been sexually assaulted and suffered at least 2 blows to the head, which caused brain swelling. According to the medical examiner, she died from mechanical asphyxia caused by compression of the neck, which was also significantly contributed to by blunt force trauma to the head. However, the medical examiner was unable to determine exactly what caused the compression of her neck. Her body was also positioned in an explicit, sexually suggestive pose, a detail that, according to them, pointed to the involvement of a sexual predator. FBI agent Richard Garcia later said that the way the body was left pointed to a disturbing message from the killer. The fact that it wasn't buried or hidden, but left almost like a calling card, like a challenge. That's why we believe this person would strike again. It was determined that she died sometime between 8:00 p.m. on the 15th and 2:00 a.m. on the 16th. Samantha was just a week away from her 6th birthday. The remains were officially identified by Samantha's grandmother through photographs. Sheriff's deputies noted that since the body was found so quickly, they had high hopes. They were hoping to obtain crucial forensic evidence, both from the crime scene itself and from Samantha's body. Evidence that, they hoped, would lead them straight to the killer. More than 500 FBI agents were now assisting with the investigation. When it came time to address the media, Orange County Sheriff Michael Corona did some unusual. He addressed Samantha's killer directly, looking into the cameras, and issued a warning. "Don't sleep, don't eat, because we're coming after you. We're going to use every resource we have to bring you to justice." But even though his words were aimed at the suspect, it was the local residents who found themselves unable to sleep. Fear gripped this community. More than 2,000 tips came in, but the police needed a breakthrough. They needed something that would put people at ease. That breakthrough came thanks to Samantha's friend, who had witnessed her abduction. A composite sketch of the man who, according to her, had kidnapped her friend was everywhere, and soon they were able to put a name to that face. A woman named Tammy recognized the person in the composite sketch and contacted the police, suggesting that the man they were looking for might be someone named Alejandro Avila. The 27-year-old man was 6 feet tall, weighed 200 pounds, and bore a striking resemblance to the sketch. After an intensive 4-day manhunt for the suspect, Orange County Sheriff's deputies arrested him. They took him into custody after searching his apartment in Lake Elsinore, and after nearly a 12-hour interrogation on suspicion of kidnapping and murder. At that time, he was living with his sister Elvira in an apartment on Riverside Drive in Lake Elsinore. His mother Adelina and another sister Adelita lived in the same apartment complex. It was just 10 miles from where her body was found. Before I found out what this Alejandro Avila was really like, I thought he was a man in his 40s with pedophilic tendencies. But I was really shocked when I found out he was only 27. But the most horrifying thing about this man was that he was completely insane. And this happened because he kept getting away with it. because Samantha was his fourth victim. On the day Samantha was kidnapped, Alejandro was supposed to make dinner for his family, which was planned to be served between 6 o'clock and 6:30 p.m. But instead of staying home, he spent the day and evening driving around Southern California. Later, bank statements and transaction records showed that at 5:18 p.m., he withdrew cash from an ATM, Bank of America, in Lake Elsinore. Over the next several hours, he stopped twice at different gas stations, and then around 9 p.m., he checked into the Comfort Inn hotel to verify his route. Investigators retraced his path exactly 1 week later, starting at the same minute he withdrew cash from the ATM. Along the way, they stopped at key locations connected to the case, at the Smog Tree condominium complex where Samantha was abducted, and at the places where her body was found, and at both gas stations he visited that night. When investigators retraced his route, they calculated the total travel time from the Bank of America branch to the hotel. The Comfort Inn, including all the key stops, totaled about 202 miles. The direct travel time would have been about 3 hours and 24 minutes or 3 hours and 40 minutes, taking each stop into account. The route matched up with him being at the Smoke 3 apartment complex around the time Samantha was abducted, then at the remote location where her body was found, before finally checking into the hotel. During the test drive, investigators arrived at the complex. At 6:17 p.m., they made the same stops and arrived at the hotel. Comfort Inn at 8:57 p.m. The timeline matches up with the events of July 15th. Alejandro's sister later said that he was familiar with the area where her body was found. She even remembered visiting that place with him once to watch a meteor shower. The day after Samantha's abduction, Alejandro told his sister that he had spent the previous day at the beach. During the conversation, she noticed a fresh scratch on the inside of his knee. He explained that he had scratched himself on the leg of a children's goalpost at home, but she noted that those goalposts were made of smooth plastic and didn't have any sharp edges that could cause such an injury. His 1994 Ford Thunderbird partially matched the description given by Samantha's friend, and investigators noted that the car's tires matched the tracks found near the spot where the body was discovered. Samantha's DNA matching Samantha's profile was found inside his car, and it was so rare that you would expect to find it in fewer than one person in a trillion. Additionally, DNA matching Alejandro's genetic profile was found in scrapings taken from under Samantha's fingernails, with a probability of occurrence in about 1 person out of 600 million, which is clear evidence pointing to a physical struggle between them. Along with tire tracks, there were also shoe prints and a single footprint found near Samantha's body. None of the pairs of shoes seized from his apartment under the search warrant matched these prints. However, surveillance footage from a gas station he visited that evening showed that he was wearing shoes that looked like sneakers. What makes this case even more disgusting to me is that Alejandro's mother kept making excuses for him and defending him, even though all the evidence clearly showed that her son was a murderer. And what kind of lawyers did this pedophile have? It was just unbelievable. They built their defense around the fact that Alejandro had a really tough childhood and that his father was imprisoned for child abuse. Are you serious? He raped at least 4 girls. There's just no way to justify that. Records from a local shoe store confirmed that in September 2001, he bought a pair of size 12 shoes, and although investigators later found the shoebox during a search of his apartment, the shoes themselves were missing. What worried the police even more was that he had previously stood trial and been acquitted of alleged sexual assault against 2 girls. His mother claimed that the charges had been fabricated by an ex-girlfriend seeking revenge. She believed that her son's arrest in Samantha's case was due to lingering suspicions because of a previous case, not because of new evidence. She says she doesn't believe her son is capable of such a crime. "I don't think my son did anything," she said. She described him as someone who treated kids affectionately. She said that after the previous trial, he was especially careful and never allowed himself to be alone with children. "He is never aggressive," she said. "He gets along very well with little kids." She also recalled seeing scratches on his legs. Investigators noted that these marks match signs of resistance that Samantha was believed to have put up, but she insisted that they were from the children's safety gates, She stated that her son was being unfairly suspected and provided him with an alibi, saying that he was shopping at the local mall at the same time. He also denied any involvement, repeating his mother's words. At the time of Samantha's abduction, he really was at the store. His mother also recalled a conversation she had with her son before his arrest. They were watching the TV report about Samantha's disappearance. "I said they should catch this person alive and burn him at the stake," her son replied. "What about the electric chair?" "No, because he wouldn't suffer as much that way." Sheriff Corona publicly stated that law enforcement had no doubt they had arrested the right person. He could barely hold back his emotions as he spoke about how this case had affected him personally. "I told you we would find you. If you even for a minute thought we were joking, tonight you'll see that we were absolutely serious." After his arrest, even more people gathered at Samantha's apartment complex, leaving flowers, teddy bears, cards, and personal messages at the growing makeshift memorial. One of the things detectives were trying to find out was whether Alejandro was familiar with this apartment complex. Had he been there before? According to the Associated Press, a man named Luis, the foster brother of Alejandro's ex-girlfriend, told reporters that Alejandro had been to this complex before. Luis said that Alejandro used to go there to visit his ex-partner's 11-year-old daughter. The girl's mother said she was afraid of him and that he may have previously visited the complex with the intention of kidnapping her daughter. "I think he went there to take my little girl. But instead, he kidnapped that little girl," she said. Alejandro Avila was charged with murder, kidnapping, and 2 counts of committing lewd acts with a child using force. The police did an absolutely amazing job catching this brazen criminal. Personally, I found the conversation with his mother really amusing when they were discussing the crime against Samantha. But his mom changed her mind about the electric chair real quick when she found out the criminal was actually her own son. And Alejandro himself said that the criminals should be burned at the stake. Makes you wonder, maybe deep down he wanted to be burned himself. Who knows? The trial of Alejandro Avila would have been an extremely difficult and traumatic ordeal for many. However, the prosecution's case was extremely compelling. In his opening statement, defense attorney Philip Zalewski argued that the DNA evidence linking him to the crime was unreliable. He claimed that the samples taken from under Samantha's fingernails were collected improperly, and he pointed out what he called inconsistencies in the witness testimonies, which ultimately led the witnesses to focus their attention on his client. In a conversation with reporters, Assistant District Attorney David Brandt rejected the accusation that investigators had planted any evidence, calling the claim absurd. Judge William Froberg also allowed the testimony of 2 girls involved in Alexander's 2001 case, when he was accused of sexual assault but later acquitted. A 3rd girl, who also claimed she had been assaulted, was also allowed to testify. One of these girls was the daughter of his former girlfriend. She said that when she was about 7 years old, he sometimes looked after her while her mother worked night shifts. He raped her when he was supposed to be taking care of her. This happened several times over the course of a year, and she said that he also assaulted her cousin. As is known, he was charged and went to trial. But since there was no physical evidence, the case came down to her word against his. His sister testified that after he was acquitted, they watched the movie Double Jeopardy, and he allegedly told her, "I can do whatever I want to that little girl, and they can't charge me for it because of Double Jeopardy." His ex-girlfriend said that when they were together, he showed little interest in intimacy, and sometimes asked her to dress in so-called youthful-style clothing. Another man also testified that Alexander was once his roommate, and after he moved out, images of child sexual abuse were found in his bedroom. The 3rd girl who accused him said that when she was 11 years old, he abused her. And she said that he warned her that if she told anyone, someone could get killed. Prosecutors stated that in their opinion, Samantha was killed so that he would never have to face such accusations again. After obtaining a search warrant, a computer was seized from his sister Adalita's apartment. She testified that she had never viewed any inappropriate material on it. Her mother didn't know how to use the internet, but Alejandro had access to it. The computer was analyzed by an investigator specializing in computer-related crimes. He described numerous images of children engaged in various sexual acts. They had been deleted, but he was able to recover them. At 4:43 a.m. on July 14, 2002, The day before Samantha's abduction, someone used this computer to print out a multi-page story about an adult man abusing young children. The investigator also managed to find a chat log between the person using this computer under the nickname Girl Lover and someone from Finland. Both said they liked girls under the age of 12. The person from Finland asked what it was like to live in California. The Girl Lover replied, "I live at 4,000 feet up in the mountains, where you can do anything you want with little kids." If we put aside all my jokes and harshness toward Alejandro, let's think about this together. Before Samantha, he had abused at least 3 other girls. His roommate said he found materials related to young children. There were also some files with children found on his laptop, and even his username on the forum was something like "lover of little girls." And he did all of this completely without consequence. And he didn't even raise anyone's suspicions, which is really strange. That's really scary, because someone like Alejandro could be living next to me or next to you, telling everyone around what he can do with little girls and that nothing will ever happen to him because of it. After nearly 9 hours of deliberation over 2 days, the Orange County Superior Court jury, made up of 8 men and 4 women, reached a unanimous verdict. The jury found 30-year-old Alejandro Avila guilty of kidnapping, raping, and murdering Samantha. When the court clerk read the verdict aloud, Aaron gasped and broke down in tears. On the other side of the courtroom, 2 jurors also cried, and one of them was gently rocking back and forth. At the defense table, Alejandro sat hunched between his attorneys, staring at the floor and showing no visible emotion. His public defender had tears in their eyes. The court announced that the jury would reconvene next Wednesday to determine his sentence. The jurors would have to decide his fate. Will he be sentenced to death or to life in prison? Aaron was given the opportunity to address his daughter's killer in court. Samantha fought back. "I know she fought back. I know she looked at you with her amazing brown eyes, and you still wanted to kill her. I don't understand that, and I never will." His lawyers asked the jury not to impose the death penalty, arguing that the crime was not premeditated, but impulsive. They said it was the result of an extremely traumatic childhood. Alejandro's life was marked by instability and violence. In 1989, his father was arrested for child abuse, and the children were taken from their home. His father, Rafael, was also convicted of murdering a neighbor when Alejandro was just 17 years old. Later, he pled guilty to manslaughter. Years later, his brother Juan was found dead in Mexico with a gunshot wound to the back of the head. In court, his lawyers stated that he came from a family that had been poor for generations, suffered sexual, physical, and psychological abuse, and was dysfunctional. But the jury ultimately rejected this argument and recommended the death penalty. The judge agreed with the recommendation. For the sake of momentary satisfaction of his lust, the defendant destroyed the future of an entire family. He lost his right to live. 9 out of 12 jurors returned to the courtroom to hear the sentencing. For many members of the jury, the most difficult moments of the trial were when they were shown photographs documenting the injuries Samantha sustained. Jury foreman Terry Dancy said that it was almost impossible to look at those images. They were graphic and absolutely heartbreaking, he said. If anyone in Orange County ever deserved the death penalty, it was this man. Just imagine that little girl on that hill. She just knew someone would come to save her, but no one did. Erin Runnion expressed hope that her daughter's legacy would help teach children to be brave if a stranger ever approaches them, and to know exactly what to do to get away and stay safe. In the years that followed, she turned her grief into action. In her daughter's name, she founded the Joyful Child Foundation. The organization is involved in initiatives such as creating community networks for child safety, conducting research to prevent repeat offenses by convicted offenders, and a whole range of other programs aimed at protecting children and preventing violence. Erin Runnion did not let Samantha's story end in tragedy. She turned her grief and anger into purpose. With the help of the Joyful Child Foundation, she created something extraordinary, a nationwide movement. Thanks to this work, thousands of children have completed safety courses where they learn how to recognize danger, trust their instincts, and protect themselves. Local community members have been trained, and law enforcement agencies have established partnerships with volunteers. Every lesson taught, every child who received this information, and every life saved is now part of Samantha's legacy. Her story lives on in the strength her mother found, and in every child who is now safer today because of Samantha. I'm truly sorry that Samantha's fate turned out so tragically, because no one could have known that an ordinary walk could end so sadly for a little girl. In my opinion, you can't blame anyone for this, except Alejandro himself. And he received the punishment he deserved. I hope that Samantha's case is still remembered, even outside the district where she lived. And that's a very important and good rule for parents. Watch over your children and teach them safety rules when they're interacting with strangers. That's all for today, friends. Stay tuned and look out for my next video. Bye, everyone.